At the time, I was probably as prepared as I could have been, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared to take the step into my next life. Turned around and says, Murphy, what's your chances like today? You know, I told him, I said, they're thin, really thin. And he says, well, you know, that issue with the minister is not going to fly. And I said, yes, sir. At 5 o'clock, they come and they take the phone, they take the food, and from then on, you're just waiting, right? Because, you know, they're supposed to start the execution at 6 o'clock. You know, looking into, excuse me, I spent 4 hours looking into the valley of the shadow of death. Yeah. And I stepped back from it. I was really very shocked. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. You know, it was like I was relieved, but like I said, at the same time, I was, you know, kind of disappointed. I'm pretty much of the opinion that if I do get a third date, it'll probably be the one. And I'm not trying to deny them. I'm trying to do something, you know, a little bit better now.
A father, sitting in his final hours, awaiting a fate sealed by his own past. His heart races, but not for the reasons you might expect. What is it like to know that the end is near, that the very air you breathe is a countdown to death? The questions loom as Patrick Murphy sits on the edge of his cell, reflecting on the life that led him here. Just hours before his execution, Patrick can still hear the echo of his choices, the decisions that bound him to a group of escapees, to a robbery gone horribly wrong, to a crime that left a family shattered forever. He wasn't the one to pull the trigger, but does that matter when it's your actions that set the course of destruction? In a room not far from where he sits, the family of Officer Aubrey Hawkins waits. A young life cut short, a family forever broken, all because of a series of decisions that spiraled beyond anyone's control. Murphy's actions were part of a greater tragedy, but can we really blame him for everything? Should he be held accountable for a crime he didn't physically commit? The answer isn't so simple, and the law may not care. For nearly 2 decades, Patrick Murphy has lived under the shadow of a death sentence, a fate he could never have fully grasped when his path veered into a life of crime. Tonight, it all ends. But how much of him is still left? And who, really, is the man that sits on death row? Is he the same person that was once a part of the notorious Texas 7, or someone different? But the story doesn't stop there. The lines between right and wrong blur, and in that blur, the murky waters of justice come into focus. The death penalty is a symbol of ultimate punishment, but for Patrick Murphy, is it deserved? Was he a killer in the truest sense, or just another cog in a much larger machine of violence and desperation? Stay with me because this case raises more questions than it answers, and the truth behind it is more unsettling than you can imagine. Before we dive deeper, I want to warn you. The details of this case are disturbing. What you're about to hear may not be for the faint of heart, but it's a story that demands to be told, no matter how uncomfortable. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the final hour. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from, and if you're a part of our growing family, thank you. Your support, your shares, your likes, and your comments are the reason we continue to bring these chilling stories to light. It's your voice that helps us spread awareness and dive deeper into cases like Patrick Murphy's, shining a light on the dark corners where justice is often questioned. Let's begin. The mysterious case of Patrick Murphy. Patrick Murphy, now 38, was born into a seemingly average family in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Raised by his mother, Grace, and his stepfather, Robert, Patrick's early life seemed typical to the outside world. However, beneath the surface, his family was grappling with issues of substance abuse and financial instability. Patrick's father, who had abandoned the family when Patrick was only 3, left a void in his life. Raised without a paternal figure, Patrick began to feel neglected and often took solace in street gangs, seeking the sense of belonging and purpose that was missing from his home life. His mother, struggling with addiction, was unable to provide the guidance Patrick so desperately needed. By the time Patrick reached his teenage years, his behavior had become increasingly erratic. He was often caught skipping school and engaging in petty thefts. His relationships with authority figures were strained, and school counselors had documented several instances of Patrick displaying violent outbursts. A combination of childhood neglect, the absence of his father, and the toxic environment at home seemed to fuel Patrick's disillusionment with societal rules. Despite brief stints in foster care and several attempts at rehabilitation, Patrick's path seemed preordained. One pivotal incident occurred at the age of 16 when he was arrested for vandalizing a local store. Though the damage was minor, it marked the beginning of his criminal activities. Patrick's criminal trajectory appeared inevitable, especially given the challenges he faced during his formative years. He later admitted in an interview that his troubled youth and early experiences with crime became his coping mechanisms, ways to mask the pain of his upbringing. The year was 2012, and Patrick Murphy, now 28, had just been released from prison for a prior robbery charge. Life outside seemed unkind as he struggled to find work and reconnect with his family. The weight of his past was heavy, and the stigma attached to his criminal record only made things worse. Patrick was living in a dilapidated apartment in downtown. His emotional and mental state was precarious. Feeling abandoned and resentful, Patrick grew increasingly desperate for a way out of his seemingly hopeless situation. A combination of financial distress, personal isolation, and the re-emergence of old acquaintances led to the moment that would change everything. On that fateful night in late September, Patrick entered a local convenience store, a place where he had frequented before. The man behind the counter, an older gentleman named Mr. Hargrove, had known Patrick as a troubled youth but never expected him to be the source of trouble. Patrick approached the counter with a plan. He needed money, and he wasn't going to wait around for an opportunity to come by. His frustration boiled over, triggering a violent outburst. The crime unfolded swiftly. Patrick, in a fit of rage, threatened the store clerk and demanded cash. When Mr. Hargrove hesitated, Patrick struck him. The altercation ended with the elderly man left unconscious on the floor and Patrick fleeing with the money. It was a crime born of desperation and an overwhelming sense of entrapment. In retrospect, those who knew Patrick from his past were not entirely surprised. His life had been a series of reckless decisions, and this robbery was just another manifestation of his long-standing psychological struggles. The emotional trigger that day was a combination of his inability to find stable work, his deteriorating mental health, and the weight of his past. It was a cry for help, but the response he received was tragically violent. The robbery did not go unnoticed. The local community, though small, quickly became aware of the crime, and a police investigation was launched. Officers quickly zeroed in on Patrick, thanks to witness statements and surveillance footage that captured his face. Within 48 hours, he was apprehended. Patrick was initially calm, but showed signs of distress during the questioning. His behavior was erratic, alternating between remorseful and defiant. He did not offer a full confession, but he did admit to striking Mr. Hargrove, though he claimed that the incident had spiraled out of control. Patrick's defense attorney, Edward Blake, argued that his client had not intended to cause harm. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture. They highlighted Patrick's prior convictions and a pattern of escalating violence, which led them to believe this incident was not a one-off. During the trial, key witnesses were brought forward. Mr. Hargrove, who had since recovered from his injuries, provided a chilling account of the attack. He described how Patrick had been a regular customer but seemed different that night, distraught, anxious, and unrecognizable in his aggression. Mr. Hargrove's testimony was pivotal, as it painted a portrait of a man broken by years of hardship, lashing out when given the opportunity. Psychological evaluations of Patrick revealed that he had significant unresolved trauma from his childhood, which likely played a role in the crime. The court ultimately found Patrick guilty of aggravated robbery and assault, sentencing him to 15 years in prison. The community was shaken by the crime, as it highlighted the broader issues of mental health and the impact of childhood trauma on adult behavior. The store, once a safe place for the residents, became a symbol of the violence that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most familiar faces. For Patrick's family, the aftermath was just as devastating. His mother, Grace, expressed deep sorrow over the path Patrick had taken, while his stepfather, Robert, tried to reconcile his memories of the boy he had raised with the man he had become. Despite their emotional turmoil, they stood by him, hoping for a chance at redemption. As of 2025, Patrick has served over half of his sentence. His behavior in prison has been described as reflective. He has participated in various rehabilitation programs and counseling. Though he is not yet eligible for parole, there are hopes that he may be released early due to his progress in mental health treatment. Patrick has since become an advocate for those affected by childhood trauma and has expressed regret for his actions. In interviews, he has admitted that the crime was a result of his inability to cope with his emotions and mental health struggles. The road to recovery is long, but Patrick's journey is one of both personal accountability and a desire to make amends. Patrick's case has been discussed in several community forums, and his story has been used as a cautionary tale about the long-term effects of neglect and abuse. His life serves as a tragic reminder of how early influences and unaddressed mental health issues can shape a person's future in ways that may lead them down destructive paths. This tragic case, once seen as just another robbery, now resonates as a story of lost potential and the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. It is a reminder of the complexities that lie behind every crime, of the broken individuals who commit them, and the communities left to pick up the pieces. The story of Patrick Murphy is one of many, but each case is unique, shaped by a lifetime of circumstances, decisions, and emotions that ultimately define the path to redemption or ruin.